Snap out of it. Get up already. Lying down for a mere fever? Don't be such a baby. Right now, my temperature is at 106 degrees Fahrenheit. I can barely move, and even though it's summer, I'm freezing and can't stop shivering. This isn't just a regular fever. I've said it over and over, I need to go to the hospital, but this woman in front of me dismisses me. It's just in your head. Ashamed to want a hospital for such a small thing. Close by, my month-old baby girl is crying. I'm sorry, sweetie. You must be starving. Mommy just can't muster the strength right now. As my world gets hazy, I hear a voice. My name's Orla. I'm a 28-year-old stay-at-home mom. From rural Texas, I was drawn to the city lights and ended up in Boston for college. Initially, some people teased me for my southern drawl, but others found it endearing. I was fortunate to make many friends here. Now my southern accent is almost gone, and people are often surprised to find out where I originally come from. After graduating, I got a job at a local firm in Boston as a receptionist. That's where I bumped into Robert, who worked for a client. He eventually became my husband. Robert's job at an international company often takes him overseas. We didn't get to see each other much, but after dating for 3 years, he popped the question one Christmas. Our wedding was a joyful occasion with college friends, colleagues, and family. Everyone was there celebrating our love. With tears streaming down, my mom held me close. You deserve all the happiness, she said. Life felt perfect. Until I moved in with that she-devil. Robert grew up as an only child, living with his folks. They were genuinely warm and welcoming when we first met, making me believe they were genuinely kind-hearted. The age gap between Robert's parents is more than a decade. His mom had him when she was just a teenager. She's nearing her 50s now, but looks so youthful. It's so lovely to have Orla with us, right, honey? She'd often chime in. Absolutely. If you ever face any trouble, just let us know, they'd assure. I'm so glad they're understanding. I've heard about those classic mother-in-law versus father-in-law tales, but with this mother-in-law, I think I'll be okay. I felt at ease. The first time something felt off was right after we got married. During a work break, I received a call from my mother-in-law. Picking it up, I heard, "So, when is Orla moving over?" Excuse me? I mean, aren't the two of you staying in the room you originally lived in? It's pretty cramped. Like a dog's kennel, isn't it? I just thought maybe you'd be moving here. Her voice was cheerful, as always, but I definitely sensed malice in her words. Robert had moved into my place after our marriage because our workplaces were nearby and I was attached to that space. Did she just call my house a dog's kennel? I'll discuss it with Robert, I said before hanging up. That night, I told Robert about the call. He felt the same way I did and immediately called mother-in-law. Hey, Mom. I talked to Orla and we're not planning on living with you. Yep. Bye. What did mother-in-law say? She sounded a bit disappointed, but she got it. Good. I sighed in relief. Late that night, I got a single message from mother-in-law saying, "That's too bad." I apologized the next morning, but there was no reply. Time passed and I discovered I was pregnant. Both our families were thrilled, but it seemed I had severe morning sickness and spent most of my day in the restroom. I ran out of paid leave and had to quit my job feeling guilty. After a while, although I still felt some nausea, I could manage some household chores. I always looked forward to the prenatal checkups, watching our little one grow. Whenever Robert could take a day off, he'd accompany me. If he couldn't, mother-in-law who lived in the same city would drive me. It's exciting. I wonder if we can find out the baby's gender soon, an upbeat mother-in-law remarked. Actually, the doctor mentioned we might know today, but as long as the baby is healthy, I tried to reply when she interjected. It's definitely a boy. We need an heir. I could only respond with a nervous laugh. At a subsequent checkup, we learned our baby was a girl. I hesitated, but informed mother-in-law. She paused for a moment, but said, "No matter the gender, it's still my grandchild," relieving my anxiety. When I told Robert, he was overjoyed. He sent tons of photos of cute clothes and toys, even during work hours. I can't wait to meet you. Please be born healthy, I hoped every day. As the pregnancy progressed into the later stages, the baby's movements became more pronounced. Starting my mornings with a hello and ending my nights with a good night, I constantly chatted with my baby. Feeling those little kicks was absolutely heartwarming. One day amidst this routine, I found myself wondering, when was the last time I felt the baby move today? Even though I had just entered the final stretch of my pregnancy, our baby was a bit smaller than average. The doctor had mentioned that it would be best if the baby arrived around the expected due date. Growing anxious, I quickly called our local maternity clinic and rushed there by taxi. I also informed my husband, who assured me he'd be there as soon as possible. Upon arrival at the clinic, they immediately hooked me up to a monitor and noticed that our baby's heartbeat was weak. Trying to keep me calm, a nurse gently said, "It's okay. Your baby just seems eager to meet you. That's all." After a short consultation among the doctors, it was decided that an emergency C-section was necessary. By that time, my husband had already arrived, had been briefed, and was filling out the necessary paperwork. An hour later, I gave birth to a 2.5-pound baby girl. That night, sleep eluded me due to the pain. Of course, it hurt. They had cut into my belly. To prevent blood clots, I had to shift my body every few hours, but every movement brought sharp pain. I received messages from my husband, words of gratitude, accompanied by photos of our baby. It seemed he had informed our parents, who were overjoyed with the news. "So, Orla, there's something I need to discuss with you." Hearing my husband's words that followed made my heart race with anxiety. A week later, on the day of my discharge, my husband settled the bill while I waited in the lounge. "Orla, looking forward to our journey from today," greeted my mother-in-law. We named our daughter Lily, born in a season of beautiful blossoms, hence Lily. Some might say it's a simple choice, but my husband and I loved it. Post-delivery, I wasn't feeling great, so I had declined all visitors. This was the first time I was meeting my in-laws after the birth. "Lily, meet your grandpa. Such a cutie," cooed my father-in-law. "May I hold her?" Lifting her effortlessly, it was clear he was already smitten. "Well, come on, hold her too." "Thank you so much, Orla." He beckoned to my mother-in-law, but she declined without even a touch. That's odd. Isn't she excited about her own granddaughter? Something's off about her, I thought, and there was a reason for my suspicion. During my hospital stay, I had plenty of conversations with the nurses and midwives. They'd check on my health and ask if there were any postpartum concerns, the usual stuff. After we finished talking, the nurse hesitated before saying, "By the way, was the woman with Orla during the checkup your real mother?" "No, she's my husband's mother." "I see. I wasn't sure whether to tell you this, but..." What the nurse told me next sent shivers down my spine. "If anything happens, please contact me immediately." With that advice, I was discharged. I honestly didn't want to get involved either, but instead of heading to our house, the car was heading to my in-laws. "We're here! From today, this will be your home. We can finally live together," mother-in-law said with a wicked smile on her face. Now, you might be wondering how this situation came to be. It all starts with why I didn't go back to my parents' home to give birth. It's not that I didn't want to. I simply couldn't. My parents married late in life and had difficulty conceiving. I was born when they were in their 40s, their only child. To add to that, my grandmother with whom we lived is elderly, and her dementia has been progressing. My parents are fully occupied taking care of her, so they're not in a position to take me in. Knowing all this, I had no intentions of going back home to give birth. Some of my friends chose to raise their kids at their own pace without returning to their parents. I felt that approach suited me better. My husband applied for parental leave, but due to staff shortages at his job, it seemed unlikely. However, after I gave birth, I wasn't feeling well. Worried, my husband consulted his parents, and it was decided we'd live with them for a while. I had reservations, but once we started living together, things went smoothly. My husband came home early to help, and my in-laws were very supportive. Mother-in-law even took care of most of the household chores, allowing me to focus on taking care of Lily. I even thought maybe we should have moved in earlier. Especially father-in-law. He was a pro at changing diapers, preparing formula, and giving baths. Father-in-law, you're amazing. I can't thank you enough. However, every time I praised him, mother-in-law seemed displeased. As the 1-month mark approached, I began to recover, and although I still felt tired, I started helping out with household chores. Around that time, my husband had to go on a business trip abroad. This time, he'd be away for about a month. If anything happens, let me know immediately. I'll come flying back. It's okay. Father-in-law and the rest are here. And with that, my husband set off for foreign lands. While my husband was away, I felt uneasy, but my in-laws insisted that I should treat their home as mine and ask for anything I needed. And true to their word, they were genuinely helpful. However, my mother-in-law did help with household chores, but she seemed disinterested in my daughter, hardly interacting with her at all. But at least the father-in-law is here, so it should be okay, right? Just as I thought that, something unexpected happened. I'll be going now. Turns out father-in-law's mother wasn't feeling well. To take care of her, father-in-law had to leave for about a week. Mother-in-law apparently doesn't get along with father-in-law's parents and hasn't met them in a long time. Even during events like New Year's, only father-in-law and his dad would go. By this time, my husband was also only a week away from returning from his business trip. I thought, it's just a week. It should be all right. But my memories of the next few days are a blur. From the next day, mother-in-law's true colors shone. How long are you going to sleep? Get up now. Woken up by her sudden shout, I opened my eyes to see mother-in-law towering over me with an intimidating look. What? Lazing around in someone else's house. There's so much to do. I wanted to boss you around, but couldn't with your husband here. It was so stressful. Her sudden change was shocking. It was as if she was a completely different person. Feeling threatened, I reached out for my phone, but in an unexpected move, mother-in-law swiftly grabbed it from me. "This is why you're going downhill," she remarked, smashing my phone on the ground. "What are you doing?" I picked it up immediately, but the screen was shattered, and it was unresponsive. "You're always on this, neglecting your parenting duties. You're a failure as a mother." While mother-in-law said that, it wasn't true. Sure, I used my phone when my daughter was asleep, whether sending cute photos of our daughter to my husband on his business trip or looking up parenting tips about things like the right amount of milk or when babies typically develop neck control. But faced with the aggressive mother-in-law, all I could muster was, "I'm sorry." The following days were a nightmare. Mother-in-law stopped doing any chores and worked me to the bone all day long. Even while taking care of my daughter, I had no time to rest. My chest, it hurts again. I had been feeling this pain for some time. There was a lump when I touched it, and it felt hot. I couldn't discuss it with father-in-law, and mother-in-law brushed off my concerns multiple times, saying, "It's all in your head. You're just overthinking." "Mother-in-law, my chest really hurts. Can you take me to the hospital?" "You again with this? Running to the hospital for something minor? Are you out of your mind?" "But I feel feverish. Can I at least lie down?" "Pretending to be sick. Have some shame." Not allowed to rest, I juggled housework and childcare while feeling dizzy. When I took a moment to check my temperature, the thermometer read 102 degrees Fahrenheit. I had no way to call for help. Mother-in-law watched my every move, and I couldn't even step outside. At this rate, I would collapse. Both mentally and physically, I was at my limit. The next morning, my temperature shot up to 106 degrees Fahrenheit. "Mother-in-law, I have a fever of 106 degrees Fahrenheit. Can you please take care of Lily? What? No way. I don't even want to touch a child like that. What's with that C-section anyway? Can't you have a child normally? I couldn't believe my ears. She really doesn't think of my daughter as her grandchild. Get up now. What's this fuss over a mere fever? Stop being so needy. Lily was crying, perhaps out of hunger. Mother-in-law continued to berate me, ignoring my daughter's distress. Then it happened. What the hell are you doing? This is outrageous! I heard a man's angry voice. Mother-in-law looked panicked, saying, What? Why are you here? Hearing that voice, whether from relief or exhaustion, I passed out. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital bed. Orla? Oh, thank goodness. I'm so sorry. I'm truly sorry. My husband was there, tears streaming down his face as he looked at me. In my husband's arms, I could see Lily sleeping soundly. From what I was told, it seemed I had developed mastitis. They administered antibiotics and my fever had subsided. I felt much better. Curiously, I asked my husband, Why are you here? What about your business trip? He replied, You stopped communicating all of a sudden, and my mom just kept saying everything was fine. Also? The maternity clinic contacted me. They were concerned when you didn't show up for your checkup and couldn't get in touch. Apparently, when I didn't show up for my checkup, the clinic became suspicious. They reached out to my husband instead of me. Although my husband was unreachable overseas, he had informed them of his workplace, so they contacted him through his company. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he spoke with his supervisor and urgently returned to the States. About my mom, he said, She claims she wasn't in her right mind because of the heat, but I can't accept that. It's okay. I'll see her. Thus, after being discharged, a meeting was arranged. When we arrived at my in-laws, my father-in-law had returned and exclaimed, I'm truly sorry for everything. You apologize too. Mother-in-law sat meekly, but glared at me. I'm sorry, but I couldn't stand it. As soon as you were away, Orla, you just left everything to others. It made me want to be a little mean, she began. And with that, she burst into childish tears. What are you even saying, you liar? You're talking about yourself. I will never forgive you. Everyone looked at mother-in-law with cold eyes. Perhaps realizing her ridiculousness, she looked up. Are we done with the theatrics? I stood up and retrieved cameras I had secretly installed around the house. I played back the footage in front of everyone. Of course, the video showed mother-in-law berating me and treating me like a servant. The cruel words she spoke to my daughter were also clearly captured. What is this? This is an invasion of privacy. I'll sue you. Shut up. You've done something unthinkable. No, you've got it all wrong. I think the heat messed with my head. Mother-in-law rambled on with incomprehensible words. Has mother-in-law's mind always been like this? You barely took care of your own children, yet you have the audacity to criticize my parenting? The truth is, before father-in-law left the house, he had confided something to me. Mother-in-law, having had a child at a young age, still had a strong desire to enjoy her youth. She would neglect Robert, leaving most of the childcare to father-in-law and his parents. No wonder father-in-law was so good at parenting. That's why father-in-law's parents had such a strong dislike for mother-in-law. Though divorce crossed his mind, he felt responsible for putting such a young mother-in-law into the role of a mother and couldn't bring himself to take that step. By the time Robert was old enough to understand things, mother-in-law began to show a little more care, so father-in-law felt relieved. However, he had noticed mother-in-law's lack of interest in their son. Suspecting the worst, and after consulting with me, he set up a camera before leaving. The agreement was that if anything suspicious occurred, he would be informed immediately, but he never expected to lose contact on the very first day. When mother-in-law realized father-in-law was involved, her earlier bravado vanished. Her face turned pale. I later learned he had told her that if she messed up again, he'd consider divorce. You don't really care for Lily either, do you? When I asked that, She stuttered. No, that's not true. She's my precious granddaughter. Liar! Deciding to spill the beans, I told her about what I had learned from the nurse at the maternity clinic. From the time Lily's gender was confirmed, Mother-in-law had been calling the clinic repeatedly. Her requests were outrageous, asking things like, "Is there any chance we could still have a boy?" Apparently, they didn't tell me to avoid causing me stress. Eventually, the head doctor took charge, and the calls stopped. Hearing this, I felt nothing but disdain and wondered how she could treat human life so lightly. Both my husband and father-in-law felt the same. "Get out! Leave, now!" "But girls, they're just so hard-headed and defiant, just like Orla. Boys are easier. They listen when asked a little thing," she rambled on incoherently. "Robert, you're on my side, right?" Suddenly, Robert, who had been silent until now, stood up. He grabbed his mother's arm and, without hesitation, dragged her out the door. "Allies? Are you serious? After what you've done to my precious Orla? And Lily, I don't even see you as my mother anymore. Stay out of our lives." His mother looked shocked. She turned to me, pleading, "Orla, I'm sorry. I apologize. Please convince him and Lily for me." But my mind was made up. "I never want to see your face again." I tossed her purse to her and locked the front door. She caused a scene for a bit, but when our neighbors started coming out to see what was happening, she perhaps out of embarrassment hurried away. What happened after? My in-laws went through several discussions with their lawyers. She tried to reconcile many times, but his feelings had completely cooled off. In the end, she reluctantly agreed to the divorce. Thanks to the property settlement from him, she won't struggle financially for a while, but she's still in her late 40s. Sooner or later, she'll have to work. I'm not sure if she, who's never worked a day in her life, will manage, but she should face some hardships. As for us, Robert's company opened a new branch in Texas, and he had been wanting to transfer there. We decided to move. Our new home is just an hour's drive from my parents' place. Every weekend they'd visit, completely smitten with their granddaughter. Little Lily, who was born tiny, has grown so much she's off the growth charts. My father-in-law sold his house and started living alone. He's always been good at housework, so he's living comfortably. We video call often, and he always shows up for his granddaughter's special events. After everything, I've decided to cherish my family more than ever.
What's this whole mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict people talk about? I've never felt it personally. Are there really such mean mothers-in-law out there? I get along great with Ethan's mom. Whenever I visit, we cook together and have a blast. If anything happens, I know Ethan will have my back. Ethan just proposed to me. My name's Zoe. I'm a 26-year-old office worker. I met Ethan in a college club, and we've been together for 8 years. Maybe that's why I get along so well with his mom. Back in college, we both aimed to join a major corporation. Ethan was so determined to join that famous company, and I took the chance too. Job hunting was tough, but we both made it in. We hugged and celebrated. But since then, our busy jobs meant we couldn't have many relaxed dates. We just wanted to support each other more than anything. That's when Ethan proposed. After 8 years, we felt inseparable. I was over the moon. We visited each other's families, and all that was left was the wedding. Then, one day, Ethan's mom, who was supposed to live with his brother Liam, asked to move in with us. I was taken aback. "We never discussed living together. What about my parents?" I said. Ethan tried talking to her, but she wouldn't listen. She had her reasons. "After your father passed, I couldn't do much for Liam. He didn't go to college, and without a high school diploma, he can't get a job. Ethan, you're all I have. You might as well be my eldest." "What? Liam's there with you. We can help financially." "I want to live with both Ethan and Zoe. Families support each other. I love you, Zoe." "Mother-in-law, But after discussing, we agreed to live with her until Liam got married. After the wedding, we moved in. But what awaited was the classic mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. I was sure we'd be fine. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. to find her already making breakfast. I rushed to the kitchen. "Good morning. I'm sorry I'm late. Let me help." "You sleep in so late. I've already made breakfast and Ethan's sandwich. Women should wake up early and handle the house. What kind of upbringing did you have?" Her words stung. I was shocked. What should I do? I was surprised from the first day. I was in a state of panic, not knowing what to do. What should I do in times like this? My mind went blank, and I said, Mother-in-law, I'm sorry, what should I do?" "You need instructions for everything? And you work at such a big company? Maybe you got in by luck and were about to be fired. That's why you rushed to marry Ethan." "That's not true. We wanted kids, and I wanted to make things easier for you." "Easier? I woke up early because there's one more person, and you're still sleeping. It's more work." "I'm sorry." "I don't like you. Don't defy me. Got it?" "What?" "Defy me, and you'll get a divorce." That's it. I faced the classic conflict I never expected. Every day was filled with her taunts and sarcasm. The dream life I had envisioned vanished before my eyes. I was exhausted, constantly trying to keep Ethan's mom in good spirits. We'd only been married for 3 months. I wanted to talk to Ethan about it, but he was always too tired from work and fell asleep immediately. I thought I'd have a chance when he got home. One day, as Ethan was changing in the bedroom, I brought up the mother-in-law issue. But Ethan dismissed it. "Come on, Zoe, you're probably just misunderstanding. There's no way my mom would act like that with you. Anyways, I'm starving. Let's eat." I shouldn't have been surprised. In front of Ethan, mother-in-law was always the perfect mother. But behind closed doors, she was a nightmare. She'd constantly threaten, "Defy me and you'll get a divorce." Where did our feelings fit into all this? I grew distant from Ethan, feeling more and more isolated. One day, at my wit's end, I finally snapped back at her. "You keep saying defy me, and you'll get a divorce." "Fine, let's do it." "What? Wait." A few days later, we divorced. Mother-in-law was shocked. She had always seen me as a servant, someone who'd do anything for her. Clean, do the laundry, make the bed, wax the floors, and when you're done, go shopping and prepare lunch. I want a roast beef sandwich today. After that, give me a 2-hour massage. Got it? Defy me and you'll get a divorce. I regretted not continuing my job. Still, I couldn't let go of my feelings for Ethan. I believed that I could build a happy family with Ethan. One day, as I was packing to leave, Mother-in-law entered the room, looking anxious. "What are you doing, Zoe?" "I'm leaving. I'll have movers pick up the rest later." "This is a joke, right?" "It's no joke. You said if I defied you, we'd divorce, so let's do it." "You're being so childish. It's obviously a joke." "A joke? Stop messing around. I've had enough. Let's divorce. It's ridiculous that your mother even has a say in this." "Well, I mean, it's just that I'm not your mother's servant, you know." "I never treated you like that. You're just misunderstanding, Zoe." "Every single day you let this happen and you call it a misunderstanding? Is this the kind of family your mother wanted?" "Wait, it's just, I've struggled raising our 2 sons. When Ethan got married, I thought I'd let out all the pent-up feelings. I felt this way for a long time. You wouldn't understand since you don't have kids." "What are you talking about? Struggled? Your father left you a house and a good amount of money. Ethan was 16 then and didn't need much care." That's why I said you wouldn't understand. Have kids and then talk. Really? But taking out your frustrations on your daughter-in-law is wrong. Was I chosen just to be your stress reliever? Is that why you were nice to me? Of course, it's always been this way. A daughter-in-law shouldn't defy her mother-in-law. That's tradition. I quickly packed and left the house. She still insisted that what she did was right and told me to understand her struggles. If this is what family means, if being treated this way is what family is about, then I don't need such a family. I'm content with my own life. I calmed down at a nearby park and then went to my parents' house. The moment I saw my mom, I burst into tears. She felt so warm. Zoe, what happened? Just wait a moment. She quickly made me a warm coffee. Drink this and calm down. This isn't like you. After calming down a bit, I told her everything. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I didn't want to worry you. You always care about me. Silly girl, I'm always here for you. Just relax here. Maybe it's best to divorce. Life has its ups and downs. I cried like a child. She hugged me tightly. I wished I could be a mother like her. The more I thought about it, the sadder I felt about Ethan not supporting me. Even if we had a good relationship with his mother, he never listened to my concerns. The happy times before marriage felt like a lie after 8 years. I realized the complexity of the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. Ethan, oblivious to everything, came home as usual. He called me after confronting his mother, but I refused to answer. He kept calling, but I blocked him. I just wanted a break. Ethan kept calling me over and over again. I couldn't help but block his number. I just needed a break. That night, I enjoyed the creamy stew I made with Mom and went to bed early. When I woke up the next day, I was surprised it was already past 8 a.m. Rushing to the kitchen, Mom greeted me. Did you sleep well? I slept like a log. It's been a while since I had such a good sleep. Zoe, how about we go to a pottery class today? A pottery class? Today? It's a new place nearby. They let you join even for just one session. I've been wanting to make a vase. Thought it might be a good distraction. I decided to spend the day out with Mom. The pottery class was more engaging and fun than I expected. For that moment, I completely forgot about yesterday. Later, Mom and I had a late lunch and did some shopping. Helping with dinner, I realized it had been a while since we spent quality time together. During college and my early working days, I never really cooked with Mom. She looked genuinely happy, probably trying to cheer me up. A few days later, a letter arrived for me. Ethan's name was on the back. I opened it immediately. To my shock, it was divorce papers. I couldn't understand why Ethan would do this, but part of me felt relieved. I felt bad for not answering his calls, but sending divorce papers was a bit much. With no lingering feelings, I decided to fill them out and submit them to City Hall. Is this how breakups go? I started to think Ethan was just like my mother-in-law. What happened to those happy 8 years? As these thoughts consumed me, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Ethan. I hesitated but opened it, and there, the email painted a picture of Ethan, completely under mother-in-law's control. She had manipulated him, blaming everything on me. I was shaking. Could this really be happening? Had mother-in-law cried to Ethan? My head was spinning. Ethan's message. I always believed in us. It hurts to be betrayed like this. Left me conflicted. It was clear mother-in-law was behind this, but my feelings remained unchanged. The realization of mother-in-law's true nature was terrifying. Regardless, I decided to submit the divorce papers the next day. The next morning, I went to the city hall and had the papers processed. Surprisingly, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Feeling motivated, I decided to start job hunting. A few days later, I got a call from a former boss. There was an opening in a subsidiary company, and they were struggling to find the right person. The offer was tempting, so I expressed my interest. Then, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Answering, I could hear a frantic Ethan. "Zoe, you haven't submitted the divorce papers, right? Let's forget all about it." "What?" "I'm sorry, I didn't know everything. Liam told me everything. It was all Mom's doing. Liam knew about her true nature, but couldn't intervene because he feared she'd kick him out. He's really sorry." "So what do you want?" "I want to apologize. I'm truly sorry." "It's too late. Please don't contact me anymore. It's over." "What?" "Let's get back together. It was all Mom's fault. I was a victim too." "Victim? You never listened to me." "But I thought Mom was telling the truth. She's always been kind, so I thought you were mistaken." "Do you realize how much I suffered? How hard it was? Mother-in-law kept piling chores on me. You never listened. This is the result." "That's not true. I was deceived by Mom. Let's start over. I've rented a place near your house." "I'm not interested, and the divorce papers have been processed. It's over." "What? I shouldn't have sent those papers. It was all Mom's idea." "You always blame Mom. Liam seems to understand better. He's not just playing games at home, he's working." "What? I thought he was just playing games." "That's another lie from Mother-in-law. You two are perfect for each other. Goodbye." "Wait, let's try again. Zoe! Zoe!" I hung up, feeling a sense of closure, as I realized that it was already over, and so I started a new chapter in my life. "Zoe, it's your first day at work. Here's a sandwich." "Thanks, Mom. I'm running late. I'll make my own tomorrow." "Take care." "Will do. Bye." I felt refreshed. A few months later, I was promoted to manager. Work was fun, and my colleagues were great. I looked forward to the future. Maybe I'll take a break from dating. I'll take things slow.
On the day I returned home from my brother and sister-in-law's wedding preparations, I overheard a conversation that left me in disbelief. "It feels so good to steal the spotlight for once, doesn't it?"
"Didn't I tell you it'd be easy to push our agenda with our older sister? Mom and Dad are on our side too."
From my younger brother's room, their high-pitched laughter echoed. I felt a sudden urge to rush to the bathroom and throw up. Not wanting to show my distress, I hurried to my room. Tears streaming, I whispered, "I'll make them regret this." My brother and sister-in-law don't know yet. They had no idea that the grand wedding they were planning would turn into a disaster by my hands. The season to start sweating has arrived. The warm season, when many brides-to-be emerge, was upon us. Once I would have laughed off old traditions and superstitions. But now, facing them myself, it's tempting to believe. Of course, no one getting married wants to think about divorce. Ideally, they'd want a lifetime of happiness together. Speaking for brides everywhere, I was discussing with my fiance, Ralphie, who to invite. Raylan, Eddie, Marjorie, Christy,
Mark, Kieran, Mr. McSorley, and others.
These names were our top priorities, the ones we absolutely wanted there. Without them, our wedding wouldn't feel complete. Of course, Ralphie had some work acquaintances to invite too. My dream wedding. Something I'd imagined since I was a child. Yet that dream was shattered by a voice from behind. Wait, you're planning your wedding on that day? Looks like we double booked. I turned around to see Lavina, my younger brother's wife, with a wry smile. You knew that was our date, right? Well, Ivan, our parents-in-law, and even your parents gave us the green light. Sorry for stealing your big day. So even my parents sided with her? I knew they always favored my younger brother, but couldn't they celebrate my big day too? I was too drained to respond. Ralphie, let's go.
Alright, but maybe we should at least say goodbye. Never mind. Lavina, please pass our regards to Ivan and the rest.
Sure, will do. Lavina's expression screamed, I knew you'd react this way. With a heavy heart, I left the home I grew up in. 2 weeks had passed since Lavina's unexpected announcement. Every message from my parents via the app darkened my mood further. And now the weekend had come and we had to visit home again. We needed to inform them whether we'd attend Ivan and Lavina's wedding. As I stared at my cell phone, Ralphie handed me a cup of coffee.
Do we really have to go?
I know. Lashing out at Ralphie wouldn't solve anything, but my anger needed an outlet. It wasn't right to take it out on Ralphie. I'm sorry.
We can always reschedule our wedding. Our patience now will pay off in future happiness.
Sometimes it's moments like these that make me realize why I married him. With that thought, we discussed whether or not to attend my younger brother's wedding and came to a decision. The next day, we drove to our parents' home in the suburbs. It's only about an hour-and-a-half drive, so it's not too tiring. When we arrived in the afternoon, our parents greeted us warmly.
It's been a while.
Have you decided? I could sense their expectation that we would attend. Ever since we were kids, it's always been about Ivan, Ivan, Ivan. Knowing their mindset, we decided to avoid any conflict and meet their expectations. We'll be there, I assured them briefly. Seeing my response, my parents exchanged a look of joy. Their passion for Ivan and Lavina is unmatched. When Ralphie and I discussed our wedding, they even suggested we didn't need a big ceremony. My parents seemed satisfied with my answer. However, we need to stay for a while to discuss the wedding preparations. I told my parents I was heading to my room and entered the house with Ralphie. As we passed by Ivan's room, I overheard, "Your sister is so naive, giving into the wedding day clash."
She never stands up for herself. You get why I said I could easily push my way, right?
Their mocking laughter echoed from the room. The shock almost made me collapse, but I held myself up, not wanting them to notice. That was the only thing that supported my knees, which were about to collapse. Ralphie, sensing my distress,
"Hang in there till we get to the room,"
he whispered. I bit my lip, leaning on him until we reached our room, where I let my tears flow. The weight of regret was overwhelming, and tears streamed down my face without warning. Lying in bed, I remembered what Lavina had said to me that day. "But Ivan, your father-in-law and mother-in-law forgave me. Sorry for stealing your big day." I knew her apology lacked sincerity. Still, out of courtesy, I would have attended the wedding and celebrated with Lavina and her family. But now, I knew a truth I wished I hadn't. How could I celebrate knowing that? After a good cry, I turned to Ralphie, determined. "Ralphie, can you listen?"
What?
I can't ever forgive them. Ralphie's face remained expressionless after hearing my dark feelings. Seeing my anxiety, he offered words that seemed to read my mind.
You want them to regret it?
I nodded firmly. Not just my brother and sister-in-law, but I wanted my parents to feel the weight of regret too. I didn't care about family ties anymore. It's all just a mess now. In the living room, my parents and my brother and sister-in-law were discussing the wedding venue. This place looks good, doesn't it?
It's a bit pricey, but it's for Lavina. Let's go with this one.
Once their discussion settled, I joined in. Why don't we visit the venue now? Hearing my suggestion, Lavina checked the time and immediately called on her cell phone.
Are you coming, older sister?
I am. We all split into cars, my brother and sister-in-law, my parents, Ralphie, and I, heading to the venue Lavina had chosen. Upon arrival, Lavina was giddy like a child, with Ivan following her with a resigned look. Ralphie and I followed them inside, where Lavina was holding hands with a female planner. Oh, Riley! Lavina, it's been so long. Since college, right? Yes, since college. At that moment, I felt something was off with the wedding planner called Riley. Her smile seemed forced, not reaching her eyes, and her voice had a somber tone. Were they really close friends? With these doubts, our family toured the venue with Miss Riley. After the tour and briefing, Lavina turned to Miss Riley, making her decision. Riley, this place is perfect. Thank you. I'm getting married here. Really? Let's make it the happiest day. To an outsider, they might seem joyful. However, I suspected that there was a huge gap between them. But I had a hunch, a woman's intuition, that there was a rift between them. Lavina asked,
You're staying, older sister?
Just a bit longer. I want to soak in the atmosphere.
Suit yourself.
After seeing off my brother and sister-in-law, Ralphie and I approached Miss Riley. Miss Riley, may I have a moment? Is it about the venue? No, it's about your relationship with Lavina. At my words, her cheerful facade dropped, replaced by a disdainful look. Can you share your side of the story, as someone who also holds a grudge? She nodded in agreement to my words. We moved to the cafe terrace, and I heard the story from Miss Riley. Lavina always had a bad track record with men, and seemed to always blame others when things went wrong. Miss Riley herself didn't want to celebrate at the wedding, and candidly expressed her wish to ruin it. Do you have a plan? I'd like to get as many people on board as possible. Can you help? Of course, I'll do whatever I can. With that, I had a powerful ally. I never thought I'd be this involved in just one day. But there's no turning back now. I'll definitely ruin my brother and sister-in-law's wedding. Ah, sister-in-law. Congratulations, best wishes. In her wedding dress, with the help of professionals, Lavina looked even more beautiful than usual. But that beauty would soon crumble. Unaware of what was to come, the wedding went smoothly and the reception began. The reception went off without a hitch, and it was time for the bride to thank her parents. My parents beamed with pride, while Lavina's mother wiped away tears. After the thank you speech, the MC announced the next program.
Next, we have a surprise video message from friends. Please look on the screen.
Curtains on both sides opened, revealing a white screen. After some static, a video of Lavina from her school days appeared. Behind the innocent-looking Lavina was a girl with a torn uniform. Next, a neon-lit bedroom scene played. Whispers and giggles filled the room. "What is that? Hey. Ew! What's this?"
What's going on, Lavina?
The reception was filled with suppressed laughter and shocked faces. Some guests confronted Lavina. "You stole someone's man again? Lavina, this time we won't let it slide. We won't listen to your excuses." I watched the chaotic reception and quietly left through the back door. Looking up at the clear blue sky, I heard the sound of heels approaching. "Good job." "Thank you for your help. Are you okay?" "I've already submitted my resignation." Her smile was perfect. If a man in the area saw this smile of hers, he would fall in love with her in an instant. The last video was evidence collected by those who wanted revenge on Lavina with Miss Riley's help. It was a compilation of various incidents involving Lavina. Some of the footage was never shown to anyone. I love the screams. "Lavina sure can scream. I'll be leaving now." The footsteps leaving me sounded somehow in good spirits. I headed to the parking lot and greeted Ralphie. "Thanks for waiting."
Good job.
We drove home. A year had passed since the disastrous wedding of my brother and sister-in-law. I heard they divorced shortly after. My younger brother, Ivan, was devastated and stayed at our parents' house. Meanwhile, my husband and I cut ties with my family and moved to a new place. Now, we were busy preparing for the wedding we couldn't have a year ago. We just need to send the invitations. There were many invitations on the table, about 100 in total. It felt like too many for just the two of us. But we had waited a year. We deserved to celebrate. I finished my coffee. I need to diet for the dress. I picked up the bag of invitations and another bag with fitness gear and headed outside. The sky was as clear as the day of that wedding.
I'm Olivia. I've been married for just 6 months, so I'm still a newlywed. Juggling my nursing job and getting used to household chores has been a challenge. I met my husband Jackson at a cycling club. We enjoy bike rides together on weekends. Our relationship feels like an extension of our friendship. We do argue, but once we've said our piece, we quickly make up. It's like we're characters from a lighthearted comic, but there are people around us who act like villains from a drama, and it's really draining. "Oh, I'm sorry. It seems I only ordered steak for 4. When we visited Jackson's parents' house for a weekend family dinner, my mother-in-law had a typical passive-aggressive surprise waiting. "Such an oversight on my part." "We've always been 4, so it's understandable." My father-in-law and sister-in-law, Isabella, chuckled. "I'm sorry, Olivia. We have some bread I baked yesterday. You can have it with jam." Even though she pretended to forget, she's pushing leftovers on me. It's unbelievable. This is the 3rd time she's done this. Jackson, who believed his mom's oversights the first 2 times, is now clearly annoyed. "I'll eat the bread, Olivia. You have the steak." "That's not how it works. You're the one supporting your wife. How many times have I told you Olivia earns as much as I do? If someone's not working, maybe you, Mom, should eat the leftover bread." "Well, sister-in-law, that's mean. Mom didn't do it on purpose." Did I do something wrong?" "That's it. If there's no food for my wife, we're leaving." "Why? We can just eat as a family." "My family includes Olivia. If you can't understand that, we won't be visiting for a while." Okay, let's split my steak. Olivia, is that okay?" "No thanks." Ugh! Eating in such an unwelcoming atmosphere feels like torture. We left, shaking off the clingy mother-in-law and Isabella. Thankfully, they hadn't tampered with our belongings. This has been the norm since our wedding. Mother-in-law and Isabella openly harass me while father-in-law smirks. When confronted, they play innocent. They even do it in front of Jackson. I wonder if they're trying to rope Jackson into their mean games. But miraculously, Jackson turned out okay despite his family. The kind-hearted Jackson who initially believed his mom and sister is now fed up with their antics against me. He's clearly on my side. I'm not the submissive type, so I don't feel the need to get along with Jackson's family at the expense of my well-being. I'll stand my ground, which seems to infuriate them even more. Interacting with them is just exhausting. After discussing with Jackson, we decided I wouldn't visit his parents' house for a while. But they had other plans. They can't resist tormenting a daughter-in-law they disapprove of.
Hello, sister-in-law.
Olivia, how have you been? A month after the steak incident, while Jackson was at work, mother-in-law and Isabella showed up at our place. Isabella, mother-in-law, what brings you here? Don't be so guarded. We're sorry we forgot to order your steak last time. We brought a cake as an apology. Would you like to share it with us? Really? There are 3 pieces. I checked, so don't worry. I really didn't want to, but after all, they're Jackson's family. It's rare for them to apologize, and I don't want to cause a scene and disturb other condo residents. Plus, I'm just off a night shift and I don't have the energy to argue. Reluctantly, I let them in. Wow, it's quite a mess in here! I regretted inviting them in just a minute after. The second round of passive-aggressive comments towards me had already begun. We've been busy with work and didn't expect any guests. You should always keep it clean. Do you want to get Jackson sick?
Exactly. Our house is always clean because Mom takes care of it. That's what a wife should do, right?
Clean? Sure, whenever I visit my spouse's parents' house, it's spotless, almost unnaturally so. But their closet? Jam-packed to the point the door was half open. I wanted to point that out, but I just wanted them to leave, so I quickly served the cake. If you can't handle housework, why not quit your job? I can. It would be a burden on my coworkers. Don't worry, everything will be fine, even without you, Olivia. How can someone who's never worked say that? Oh, how about moving in with us? I can teach you all the duties of a wife, and I'll even let you work.
That sounds great. I'd love to get closer to my sister-in-law.
No way. I'd never want to live with them. We're good, just the 2 of us.
Oh well, it was a suggestion.
What a pity. They surprisingly backed off quite easily. It felt eerie.
Can I use the restroom?
Sure. Isabella went to the bathroom, leaving me alone with my mother-in-law. Don't worry about the living together thing. We're family, after all. That's not the point. When Isabella finally came out, they continued their barrage of comments until they finished their cake and finally left. They even had 3 cups of tea each. Closing the front door, I felt a wave of exhaustion. Jackson will be home soon. I need to start dinner. Fighting the urge to lie down, I slowly head into the living room. Distracted by my fatigue and frustration, I didn't notice the bedroom door was left open. Hey, Jackson. What's up? Do you know where the contents of my red tin are? The red tin with the letters from your patients? No idea. I thought so. That night, after my in-laws' unexpected visit, I noticed the contents of a tin in my bedroom were missing. This tin held letters from patients I had cared for. I had been organizing these letters in my bedroom just before they arrived. I was preparing dinner right after they left, so I didn't check the bedroom until bedtime. I had completely forgotten about it. But now, the contents were gone. All that was left was the red tin. I thought maybe I had taken it to the living room, so I searched everywhere but couldn't find it. After a night's sleep, I searched again but still couldn't find it. Then it hit me. Yesterday, Isabella's bathroom break was unusually long. Could it be? I quickly grabbed my phone and called my mother-in-law. Oh, a call from Olivia, that's rare. Even over the phone, I could tell she sounded oddly cheerful. I'm sorry, but I can't find a bundle of letters from my patients since yesterday. Do you know anything about it? Oh, you've lost something so important. How careless. I don't know, but
I'll ask Isabella. After a while, Isabella came on the line. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry, I might have thrown it away. What? My worst fears were confirmed and I felt sick. I tidied up your bedroom a bit when I went to the bathroom. I didn't ask you to. It was messy and it bothered me. That doesn't give you the right to go into my bedroom and throw away my things. I'm sorry, I get so engrossed when I start cleaning. People often tell me I'm naturally eccentric. What does that even mean? Olivia, Isabella didn't mean any harm. It's your fault for not keeping your room tidy in the first place. I can't believe. I think we should move in together. I can teach you how to clean properly. We're both a bit forgetful, so you must be worried, right? We can support each other. My mother-in-law laughed, and I could hear Isabella laughing in the background. There's no point talking to them. I need to look for the letters. Goodbye. I hung up, feeling defeated. I found it. Opening the bedroom trash can, I found the letters I was looking for, but they were crumpled up, having been forced into the small bin. I carefully spread out each letter, trying to smooth out the creases. I could still read the words, but they were now tainted. These letters were my motivation to continue as a nurse. Some were from people I'd never see again. I felt so sad and angry. I could tolerate their harassment towards me, but this was unforgivable. They trampled on people's feelings, and I could never forgive them. When Jackson heard what his sister had done, he looked devastated. Maybe we should move far away. But you have a stable job, and it would be hard to start over in another state. I like my current job, and I have patients I care for. I don't want to give up on everything because of them. But I appreciate Jackson's willingness to even give up his family for me, but we have a powerful ally on our side. I think I'll talk to Dad. Your dad? He's a great guy, but... Jackson looked a bit troubled. It might seem pathetic to rely on a parent, but we had no choice. I want to show them what naturally eccentric really means. After convincing Jackson, I called my dad. A few days later, without any notice, Jackson and I visited my in-laws. What's this sudden visit? Decided to move in? At the entrance, my mother-in-law greeted us with a smug smile. No way, Jackson retorted, clearly annoyed. Unable to comprehend his frustration, Isabella and father-in-law piled on with their self-centered remarks. Living together would make everyone happy, don't you think? We're making a generous offer here, and you two are just being stubborn. You see, a daughter-in-law should... A daughter-in-law should what? Huh? A deep voice suddenly interrupted, causing everyone to flinch. From behind us, my dad slowly emerged. It's been a while, hasn't it? Since Jackson and my daughter's wedding. Yes it has. Father-in-law took a step back. My dad, with his bear-like stature and fox-like sharp gaze, was intimidating even to those who knew him. Mother-in-law whispered in my ear, tugging at my arm. Why is your dad here? Because you said I was a terrible daughter-in-law. I thought you might want to see the face of the man who raised me. Hey, lower your voice. It's fine. I'm not bothered by my loud voice. So I heard my daughter isn't up to your standards. Dad's piercing gaze settled on mother-in-law. Well, that's... What exactly is she lacking? Her room is messy. From what I saw, it didn't seem that bad. You must have very high standards. Let me see for myself. Wait a minute. Ignoring her, Dad began inspecting the house. This was the reason for our unannounced visit. The clutter they usually hid in closets and spare rooms was now scattered everywhere, from the living room to the hallway. Even food wrappers and dust were left untouched. From a neutral standpoint, it seems my daughter keeps her place tidier than this. Dad tilted his head, puzzled. But you came unannounced. Oh? I heard you told my daughter she should always keep her place clean, even without plans. Your words don't match your actions. Well, if this is your standard of cleanliness, my daughter is just fine. No need for you two to live together. Deciding that was enough, Dad headed for the exit. Wait! Isabella tried to stop him. Despite being momentarily intimidated by his glare, she looked up pleadingly. Sister-in-law is so mean. She blames us for small mistakes and keeps rejecting us. Oh, I heard. Like how you only ordered food for 4 during a meal, excluding her. Dad responded calmly. Did she think that Dad, who had a surprising ear to listen, would be able to do it?
Hoping he'd be sympathetic, mother-in-law chimed in. Yes, I accidentally ordered for the 4 of us. Olivia seemed upset I didn't mean any harm. That's unfortunate. Right? You should visit a neurologist immediately. What? Mother-in-law makes a stupid sound at Dad's sudden proposal. I suspect a brain disorder if you keep making such mistakes without any ill intentions. No, I know a good doctor. They're quite popular, so the earliest appointment is in a week. Is that okay? No, thank you. You shouldn't hesitate. It's not good for my daughter to blame an elderly person with a potential illness. Elderly? Seeing mother-in-law's shocked face, Dad turned to Isabella. You too. Huh? Dad also targets Isabella. You seem forgetful and cause trouble for others. Disposing of important documents in someone else's room might be a sign of an illness. I'll arrange for you both to be seen together. Don't worry. I'm fine. I'm perfectly healthy. You're around 40, right? It's a pity at such a young age. I'm 25. Oh, my apologies. I thought you were Jackson's older sister, not his younger one. Wow, Dad. Isabella, who never seems to care about fashion or grooming, always looks grumpy. Does seem, well, a lot older than she is. I bet if Dad, who generally believes this, said it out loud, it would hurt Isabella more. Yes, he truly believes it. He suspects a brain issue and suggests a hospital visit out of pure concern. Though Dad looks intimidating, he was born into a privileged family. Maybe that's why he's genuinely, well, naturally eccentric. If it weren't for Mom being so grounded, our family would have been in chaos. Don't worry, if your wife and daughter go to the hospital, they'll surely find out what's wrong. Being treated as if his wife and daughter are ill, and genuinely. Wait, I'm not senile and I'm not sick. People with illnesses often deny it. It must be shocking to think you're sick. That's not true. Mother-in-law vehemently denies, almost ready to lash out. She must have realized they might genuinely take her to the hospital. It's on purpose, not ordering my daughter-in-law's steak. My daughter throwing away her stuff. It's all to spite her. Finally, mother-in-law admits her actions. Spiting her? Dad's eyes widen a bit. So you mean the typical spite towards a daughter-in-law? Yes, your daughter is too cheeky. Even though she's Jackson's wife, she's not a housewife and neglects household chores. We allow her to work so she could at least obey us when we meet. I endured spite from my mother-in-law. Isn't it unfair? Now it's Mom's turn. Isabella turns in with mother-in-law's momentum, but Dad's reaction isn't what they expected. Poor thing. Huh? Dad looks at mother-in-law with pity. His eyes might be intimidating, but as his daughter, I can see the compassion. You've been treated horribly by father-in-law's mother all this time, haven't you? Didn't your husband protect you then? Well, it's not my daughter who's cruel, it's your husband. My sister was also mistreated by her mother-in-law, and her husband noticed and decided to separate from the mother-in-law. Mother-in-law gasps. When a couple marries, they should have their own household. A husband's duty is to protect his wife and children. Your husband abandoned that duty. Wait a minute! Father-in-law tries to interrupt Dad. Sorry for overstaying. Basically, a parent's role is to watch over their children's households. Oh, I'll make a hospital appointment just in case. We don't need a hospital, Isabella protests, almost screaming. But Dad isn't listening. Jackson, tell me your mom and sister's names later. Yes. Come on, Mom, say something. Mother-in-law, who was loud just moments ago, now looks pale. She probably realized who the real enemy is. The reason she could spite her daughter-in-law in front of Jackson was because she had real-life experience knowing her husband wouldn't side with the daughter-in-law. It's truly pitiful. Dad's right, she's a poor soul. Leaving behind a shouting Isabella and father-in-law and a contemplative mother-in-law, we leave the in-laws' house, probably because of the commotion at the entrance. The neighbors are watching from a distance, curious. Taking the opportunity, I explain the real situation of the spite towards the daughter-in-law, also mentioning the important letters that was thrown away. Receiving sympathy and encouragement, I express my gratitude. With some people listening intently, the story of the spite will probably spread quickly. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, with that level of chaos, you probably won't have to live with them. Good for you. Yes. Dad smiles, though it's a bit strained, but that's the best smile he can muster. Jackson, I'll give you the hospital's number. You should call, being family and all. You're really gonna call? Of course! What if something happened to your precious parents? Now that's what I call genuinely eccentric.
He can't read the room, takes words at face value, but cares for everyone without bias. Fake eccentrics don't stand a chance against that. Later, Dad and Jackson actually took mother-in-law and Isabella to the hospital. Of course they were healthy, but Dad joked, "So it's just a bad personality then, good to know." Apparently, Isabella gave him a death stare. Yet mother-in-law just went home without much reaction. And then, chaos started in the in-laws' house. Having realized who the real enemy was, mother-in-law heavily blamed father-in-law for his past actions, and father-in-law, without any remorse or apologies, made things worse, pushing their relationship to the brink of divorce. In the midst of this, Isabella and father-in-law, feeling abandoned by mother-in-law, stormed our house. "Olivia, it's because of your dad stirring things up that mom and dad are on the verge of divorce.
We were doing fine until you guys interfered."
I looked at the two of them, fuming with a cool expression. So, sacrificing the daughter-in-law was the secret to a happy family? Gross.
"What did you say?"
Father-in-law, quick to anger, raised his fist. "But we had a guest today."
"Oh, isn't that Jackson's dad?"
It's my dad."
"Are you here to spite the daughter-in-law again? Is it that fun? Does it release a lot of dopamine? Isabella, if you keep this up, you'll get more wrinkles and look even older."
"Shut up."
"See, getting angry isn't good."
Dad looked down at Isabella with genuine concern, and being oblivious to how this might hurt her pride is so typical of my dad. "Oh, I know someone hosting an anger management workshop. Interested?" I suggested, and Dad's face lit up.
"Oh, that sounds great. Let's book it right away."
"Enough is enough!" Isabella, on the verge of tears, yelled as she dragged father-in-law away. I doubt they'll ever storm our house again. Dad just happened to be here today, bringing back souvenirs from his trip with Mom. I felt bad for dragging him into this.
"Why are you so obsessed with spiting the daughter-in-law? There are so many fun things in the world."
Dad genuinely wondered. "They just think differently from you, Dad."
"I see. Are you okay, Olivia? If you're worried, you can always move in with us."
I'll pass on that offer. I knew it was a genuine offer out of concern, but living with my well-meaning but eccentric dad might be too much for Jackson. Sometimes distance helps maintain a good relationship. It's okay. Jackson's on my side.
That's reassuring.
We'll work hard together so you won't have to worry, Dad. Jackson and I are solid, because unlike mother-in-law and her family, we've a bond that they lack.
Women over 40 are no longer needed.
When I got home, Robert said this to me with a sleazy grin. I quickly agreed to divorce him, but I'm not letting it end like this. I'll make sure he regrets this, right? My name is Emma, and I'm 44 years old. I have been married to Robert, who's 2 years older than me, for 20 years now. Even after getting married, I've continuously worked at the same place, and now I'm in a respectable position. With a family, why did I devote myself so much to work? The main reason is that we don't have kids. It's not that we didn't want them, we just couldn't have them. There were times I was down about it, but I had a fulfilling job. That's why we were able to continue our life as a couple without breaking down. However, recently, I have immersed myself in work because we don't have children. I don't mind working late or staying overnight. Why? Our marital relationship has gone cold, and I don't want to be home. Robert's in sales, so he's been using work as an excuse to be away more often. He often comes home in the early hours. Because of this, Robert and I no longer have the conversations or physical intimacy we used to. If someone said we were getting old, I would understand. But with Robert, his attitude has clearly changed. It happened just the other day. When I got back from working late, there were scattered food wrappers on the table. I hate it when trash is left out, so I pointed it out to Robert, who was lying down watching TV. Robert, I always tell you to clean up after you eat, don't I?
Yeah?
It's not just yeah. You always say that, but never do it.
Yeah.
Are you even listening? You're not really responding.
Yeah. This comedian is so hilarious.
Fine, I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Good night. he completely ignored my goodnight. He used to always greet me, no matter how busy he was. I wonder what made him become so distant. Trying to talk to him only resulted in empty responses. It never felt like a real conversation. Living this Cold War with Robert, it's like we're just roommates now. Is there any meaning left in being with him? Sometimes I feel so down. Maybe I'm reaching my breaking point. Then, on one particular day, I surprisingly finished work on time without any overtime. I thought maybe I can have dinner with Robert for once. So I went shopping and headed home. As I was cooking his favorite beef stew, Robert came home just in time. I greeted him with "Welcome home," but there was no response. His attitude frustrated me. But it's scary how you can get used to such things. I tried to shift my mood and spoke to him again. "I made your favorite beef stew tonight. Let's eat while it's hot." "Mm-hmm. Can I serve it on a plate now? I also bought some baguette."
Yeah.
"It'll be ready soon, so maybe take off your suit."
No, I don't want any.
"Excuse me?"
I ate out today.
Why wouldn't he say that from the start? If he ate outside, he should have informed me earlier. As I was fuming over his ambiguous answers, Robert broke the silence.
I think this is a good time. I have something to tell you.
"Tell me. Now isn't the time."
I want a divorce.
"What?" The sudden divorce request left me frozen, still holding the pot. In response to my silence, he said again,
I said divorce. Didn't you hear?
"I heard you, but are you serious?"
Of course, I am. Who jokes about things like this?
"I get it, but..."
Fortunately, we don't have any kids. At this rate, I don't know what will become of my life. Being with you will just lead to a dull ending, right? I can't stand that idea.
"Hey, what do you mean by that? Even you, Robert?" Before I could vent my frustration, he cut me off.
To be honest, I don't need a woman past her 40s anymore.
"What?"
I said I don't need her, meaning she's useless and I don't want her around.
"Are you serious? Who does he think he is? I might be past 40, but Robert's over 45 himself." In my growing anger, Robert smirked and said,
Anyway, I want a divorce from you. I plan to have a much more fun life from here on. You are just not part of that picture.
I had forgiven Robert's attitude countless times before. I genuinely believed that we got married out of love. But enough is enough. If he's going to say such things, I'll gladly get rid of this trash. With a smug look on his face, I firmly told him, "Well then, that's great. I'll leave right now."
Wait, what?
Seeing my prompt agreement, Robert was taken aback.
I'll start packing right away. Wait, Emma, why are you being so casual about this?
Why not? A divorce wouldn't bother me.
Uh-huh.
There is absolutely no downside for me in getting a divorce.
That can't be true. Are you okay with people knowing you have been divorced?
Watching him get desperate, I couldn't help but chuckle.
What's so funny?
Just that I don't care what others think.
You don't care what others think, Emma?
After the divorce, I won't have to deal with you and your issues. No daily frustrations. We don't have kids or live with our parents, and I work too. So life won't be hard, right?
But
seemingly upset that I so easily accepted the idea of divorce, Robert frowned. I had one more thing to tell him. Plus, why wouldn't I want a divorce when I could get compensation?
What? Compensation? What are you talking about, Emma?
Am I saying something odd?
Just so you know, women don't just get compensation money because they're women.
I know that. Compensation isn't about being male or female. I am not that naive.
Then why?
This guy doesn't seem to realize it yet. That I have already spent a lot of money to uncover the truth. I smiled at him and said, "Well, I'll be back for the rest of my stuff."
Huh? Wait!
"Oh, we can discuss the division of assets later, okay?"
No, listen.
"Don't worry, there's a motel near your office, and I'm thinking of moving into the apartment the company provides. So bye. Leaving those words behind, I immediately left the house. Robert looked unhappy, but I didn't care anymore. The best punishment is awaiting him after all. Later, I contacted my lawyer to process the compensation. A few days passed. Finishing work on time, I headed to Robert's house to pick up the remaining items. He arrived just as I did. The moment he saw me, he approached me angrily.
Hey, Emma, what's going on?
What? Keep your voice down.
You're the one who's ignoring my calls. I called many times and even sent you WhatsApp messages.
Why would I need to hear from someone I'm divorcing?
Emma, how can you say that?
With a smirk, I pointed out, oh, maybe you're wondering how I found out about your affair?
You knew?
Of course. We have been married for 20 years. If you weren't going to say anything, I was thinking of divorcing you soon.
That's why you hired a lawyer so quickly? Who do you think you are?
Isn't it obvious? It's for the compensation. I have to get what's due to me. To that, Robert unexpectedly said,
I'll pay the compensation.
Really? You're more reasonable than I thought. With a sly grin, he confidently said,
You knew about my affair, but did you know she's a wealthy heiress?
I've heard something like that.
So paying you is no big deal for me. No harm done. And hiring that fancy lawyer of yours? Must have been tough, huh?
Interesting. From the way you speak, it seems you don't regret cheating at all.
Of course not. I just followed my desire. We have been together for 20 years. You should be thankful.
That was the moment I decided to take him down a notch. Had he shown genuine remorse or apologized even once, I might have reconsidered, but clearly he has no intention to. Well, I have some thoughts too. Well, I understand your feelings now. I'll submit the divorce papers tomorrow.
Great. I'll go to the bank tomorrow and transfer the compensation, $30,000, as your lawyer specified, okay?
All right, go ahead with that. And so our divorce was finalized. Being single again, I felt an immense sense of relief and freedom. I wished I had divorced him sooner. That's how liberated I felt. Once life had settled down, I decided to visit Betty, the woman Robert has been having an affair with. I found her address through a detective agency. Betty hailed from one of the town's prestigious families that had owned vast lands for generations. She too would eventually inherit a large portion of these lands. Perhaps she had already been informed by her lawyer, for when I met her, she immediately apologized. I'm so sorry for what happened. I shouldn't have. It's all right. I didn't mean to barge in on you, but I need to know. Was it true about you and Robert? Yes, but I didn't know. What? I didn't know Robert was married. He told me he had been divorced and had no kids. Betty, Robert's affair partner, had apparently been involved with him without knowing he was still married. As she spoke, the true extent of Robert's deception became clearer. I know there was an age difference, but I truly loved Robert. I never imagined he was married. We are divorced now, so don't worry too much about it. But it's because of our relationship that... Yes, the affair played a part in my decision to divorce, but it wasn't just that. I lost all affection for him because of his character. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm genuinely sorry. At the end, she said, looking straight at me, I'm going to start anew. 2 weeks later, just when I had almost forgotten about everything, Robert called. Annoyed with his persistence, I reluctantly answered. He instantly raised his voice.
Hey, what the hell is going on?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Why did you call me out of the blue?
It's not out of the blue. I can't reach Betty anymore.
Why are you asking me? Sounds like your problem.
She suddenly blocked my calls and even blocked me on WhatsApp right after I broke up with you. The timing is just too perfect.
So you decided to contact me about it?
I bet you had something to do with it. What did you do to her?
Do? I just met and talked with her, that's all.
You met and talked with her?
Yes. Is there a problem with that? I explained the situation and he fell silent. That's probably why she decided to move off. Too bad for you, being dumped so easily.
What What am I supposed to do now?
Do about what?
I was planning to marry Betty and inherit her family's wealth. I even quit my job, thinking I wouldn't need to work anymore.
You quit your job? Seriously?
Of course. Why work when you're married to someone that wealthy? Everything was going according to my perfect plan, and now because of you, what a terrible woman you are.
Robert shouted at me over the phone, hurling insults like there was no tomorrow. Quitting his job just to be some mistress's sugar baby? I didn't think he was that foolish. Though I was disgusted, I decided to give him one last parting gift. You haven't changed a bit. Maybe you need another wake-up call.
What, Emma? What are you talking about?
I'll be reaching out to the husbands of the married woman you have been seeing behind Betty's back.
What?
You think I don't know? I'm fully aware of all your little escapades. It had come to light through a private investigator that Betty wasn't Robert's only affair. He had several others, both single and married women, totaling around 5. He met them at bars, clubs, and even dating apps. Being a former salesman, Robert had a knack for making connections in many places. But to think he was such a playboy? To the very end, he is beyond redemption. The fact I was once with a man like this gives me the creeps. So, expect compensation claims, not just from Betty, but from the other woman's spouses as well. Enjoy the mess you have created for yourself. Hearing this, Robert frantically responded,
Wait, why are you doing this?
Why? Did you seriously think a light punishment would be all you would get? I gave you a chance to reflect on your actions. You should be thanking me.
What kind of twisted logic is that? I've been regretful, you know.
Regretful? I couldn't hold back anymore. Do you realize how many people you have hurt because of your carelessness? Do you even understand the magnitude of your actions?
Calm down, Emma.
You lied, not just to married women, but also to single ones like Betty. What do you think marriage is, just a game? Are you out of your mind?
It's not like that.
What's different then? I have tolerated you for too long. I hope you're swamped with claims and suffer forever. Never show your face to me again, jerk.
Wait, Emma, listen.
Ignoring his desperate cries, I hung up and blocked all his contacts. That was the end of my ties with Robert. After that, he received compensation claims one after the other from the spouses of his mistresses. He ignored the payments, which eventually led to legal actions. Since he was at fault, he couldn't evade the charges. He had quit his job relying on Betty's wealth, so he didn't have a stable income. Rumor has it he borrowed money from various sources to pay the compensations, and now juggles multiple part-time jobs to pay back his debt. I don't pity him. He deserves the misery. As for me, I'm relishing my stress-free life. Working is as hectic as ever, but every day is rewarding and fulfilling. After looking after that hopeless man for 20 years, I believe a lot of good fortune awaits me.
I'm Elizabeth, just your average housewife living in a pretty standard life. As I near my 60s, my husband Christopher, who's a bit older, has shifted from full-time work to freelance gigs, and we're enjoying our laid-back days together. Our only son, Daniel, got married last year. At the request of his wife Stephanie, they didn't have a wedding ceremony, but they did take wedding photos in Italy, it seems. The two of them smiling happily against a backdrop of the clear blue sky and ocean. We couldn't help but laugh at how radiant they looked, which earned us a glare from our son. We're happy as long as they're happy, no matter the circumstances. The couple met far away in Stephanie's hometown and have settled there due to work commitments. Although it's not an easy drive, they usually come home for Christmas and Independence Day. And so, Independence Day has arrived once again, with our son and his wife coming home.
We're home!
Hello, mother-in-law. Long time no see. Thank you for coming all this way. Come in, come in. I lead Stephanie, who still seems a bit tense, into the living room. We catch up over some key lime pie I prepared for this occasion, and the conversation is lively. Well, mostly it's me doing the talking.
You're too excited, Mom,
Daniel says, rolling his eyes. Next to him, Stephanie smiles and nods along. Oh my, look at the time. I'll go start dinner. Stephanie, you can relax. No, please let me help. With that, Stephanie puts on the apron she brought and follows me into the kitchen. It felt odd to decline her offer, so I leave her in charge of making the soup. As we cook side by side, chatting away, I feel somewhat bashful. This is a first for me. It's so wonderful. I've always dreamed of standing in a kitchen with a daughter. Daniel was never interested in cooking. Oh, sorry, you're just being polite. Not at all. I'm thrilled to be cooking with you, mother-in-law. Stephanie, could you teach me how to make something Daniel likes? He told me, why not learn from Mom? She's a great cook. Despite my faux pas, Stephanie kindly covers for me. What a wonderful daughter-in-law my son has found. Daniel, you've never said anything like that at home, have you? As she sat with her husband in the living room, she made sure Daniel could hear. Daniel chuckled.
Well, it's embarrassing, you know.
Daniel, an easygoing guy, and Stephanie, a calm soul. I knew they built a lovely home together. I wanted to do everything I could to help them. It was just a given. That's a parent's role, right? But I realized not all parents are like that. Stephanie, you look pale. Your bed is made. Why don't you rest? No, please let me help. We were concerned about Stephanie's pale face from the moment we picked her up for Christmas. Don't push yourself. You look thinner than when we saw you last summer. Are you eating? Well, about that. Stephanie hesitated, but stubbornly moved toward the kitchen. Her husband chimed in.
Elizabeth can handle it. You should rest.
Okay, sorry. Finally, she reluctantly left the kitchen. Throughout the visit, we advised her to go home early because she was unwell, but still willing to help. Stephanie seemed like she wanted to say something, but Daniel nudged her and they left. Watching their car drive away, we sighed. She looked like she was struggling but still wanted to work. She could lean on us more.
She probably hasn't had the chance to rely on anyone.
Why Stephanie refused a wedding ceremony? It was her relationship with her biological mother. Apparently, Stephanie grew up without a father, raised by a mother. She more interested in gambling and smoking than in parenting. So, Stephanie's maternal grandmother took care of her, teaching her all the household chores. She passed away before Stephanie went to high school. Stephanie has been working part-time to afford her tuition at an alternative high school. She's a dedicated, hard-working woman. And until their marriage, her mother had been taking most of Stephanie's earnings. Daniel told us, clenching his jaw.
So, Dad, Mom, if you see Stephanie struggling, please help her.
I remember the night we first met Stephanie before their marriage, when Daniel earnestly asked this of us for the first time. It was moving to see our son, who had lived life at his own pace, had finally grown up enough to have someone to protect. And it was wonderful to know that he trusted us. 2 weeks after Christmas, I usually avoid calling Stephanie unless it's necessary. I'm a chatterbox, and Stephanie tends to overthink interactions with people. Keeping a bit of distance works best for both a daughter-in-law and a mother-in-law. When I first got married, we lived with my mother-in-law, and we didn't get along at all. My husband eventually decided we should live separately. Once we did, we saw less of each other's irritating habits and managed to maintain a cordial relationship. I don't think she's a bad person after all. So when Daniel said,
"Help her out if she seems to be struggling,"
I was torn about how involved I should get. But I just couldn't shake the memory of her pale face on Christmas. I'll just check on her, then hang up quickly. I convinced myself and pick up the phone. After several long rings, she picks up. Mother-in-law? Hey, how are you feeling, Stephanie? Did you see a doctor? Sorry for prying, but I've been really worried. I nervously ramble on, trying to hide my guilt. There's silence on the other end. Sorry, I tend to ramble on selfishly. Help me. What? Mother-in-law, please help me. Her voice is desperate. I instantly realize the gravity of the situation. What's wrong? Are you feeling ill? Where's Daniel? Daniel is on a business trip. Understood. I'll be a little while, but hang tight. I'm definitely coming. I hang up without asking any more questions and check the time. It's just before noon. If I catch the train now, I should be there in about 2 hours. I leave a quick scribble note for my husband, grab my wallet and phone, and rush out of the house. Stephanie! Mother-in-law! Stephanie was slumped on the couch in a room as cold as outside. You don't seem to have a fever. Did you go to the hospital? I'm sorry. No need to apologize. I'm sorry. Stephanie? To snap her back to reality, I warm the room and decide to make some cocoa. The fridge is empty, so I can only make rice porridge. What I had to force out of her hesitating lips was about her strained relationship with her mother. Stephanie's mother had always opposed our marriage. Probably didn't want to lose a daughter who took care of her and gave her money. So she agreed to back off on the condition that she would financially help us until we had children. Turns out Stephanie was suffering from morning sickness on Christmas. After the new year, she was led to an OB/GYN during a hospital visit where they confirmed a heartbeat from the fetus. Her morning sickness is severe, and she has even had her work hours reduced. Daniel wanted to cancel his business trip, but Stephanie insisted he go, citing it as important. Then her mother showed up, demanding money. Seeing Stephanie's pale face, she quickly discerned the pregnancy and yelled, "You are not allowed to have this baby!" Upset that her usually submissive daughter wasn't agreeing, she took all the money and food in the house and left. As Stephanie recounted this calmly, I broke into tears. How could someone do this to her own daughter and grandchild? Mother-in-law. Seeing me cry, Stephanie's emotionless face twisted with guilt. It was heartbreaking to see her, a woman who didn't even know how to cry in pain. Stephanie, be honest. What do you want to do? If it's all right, I want to have this child, even if it's a burden on you and the family. Burden? When your child's life is at stake? I gently touched her still flat belly. I'll protect you and your mom, I swear. That night, I told Daniel about today's events over the phone and made a suggestion. I sensed tears in his voice when he said, "Thanks, Mom." Christopher also immediately gave the go-ahead. I'm truly grateful for a husband who understands my resolute nature. In the bedroom, I watch Stephanie's face as she sleeps, cradling her stomach. Grandma will do her best, okay? Feeling a sense of resolve, I too went to bed to prepare for the challenges of tomorrow. The next day, as Stephanie and I were having lunch, the doorbell rang. I left Stephanie, who was frozen in front of the monitor, and answered the door. Stephanie, that money isn't enough. When your husband comes home, make sure to get more from him. I stood in the way of Stephanie's mother, who was trying to barge in while spewing vile words without even looking at me. Realizing something was off, she finally looked up. A stranger, an older woman, met her gaze, which was filled with surprise. Hello, I'm Daniel's mother. I apologize for the delayed introduction. Oh, hi. Caught off guard, she's stunned as I make the first move. It seems we're going to become grandparents. What? Well, I mean, aren't we all a bit too young for that? She looks at us with an ingratiating and sticky gaze. Stephanie never knew how to act spoiled, but it seems this woman had lived her life doing just that. Age doesn't matter when you're married. How old were you when you had Stephanie? 18? Well, you were much younger than Stephanie is now. She'll be just fine. I had her young and it was hard. I don't want my daughter to struggle. You've certainly had a hard time. But don't worry, Daniel's here and we're also here for Stephanie. What the hell? Frustrated that her feelings aren't understood, Stephanie's mother screams like a child. Stephanie, frightened by the outburst, also lets out a small scream from behind. So you're telling me that my daughter, who I raised single-handedly through struggles, won't give me money because she's married and pregnant? That's ridiculous. The one who's ridiculous is you. I firmly reject this incredibly selfish person, giving her no room to cling to me. Children are not born to serve their parents. They're born to live happily as individuals. Besides, your struggles stem from your lack of self-control and reckless spending. I can do whatever I want with my daughter.
Then give your daughter to us.
Suddenly, the bedroom door opens and my reserved husband appears. The unexpected arrival of a second person changes the color of Stephanie's mother's face, and the entrance of this somewhat intimidating older man has diminished her bravado a bit. Ignoring her changing expression, my husband takes out a thick envelope from his bag.
I had set aside $50,000 for my son's wedding. I'll offer it for your daughter.
$50,000? She was visibly thrilled by the sum, a sum she was not accustomed to. Well, I've spent more on raising my daughter actually. It was infuriating to watch her try to negotiate for more money rather than say her daughter couldn't be bought.
That amount has probably already been paid back by your daughter, hasn't it? She seems quite self-sufficient. If you don't need it, we can call the deal off.
Well, fine then. It's for my daughter and my grandchild. She snatched the envelope from my husband. Her daughter was nowhere in her gaze anymore.
Let's go, Stephanie.
Okay. To spare Stephanie from any more ugliness, I took her outside. But she stopped at the front door, turning to say, "Thank you for everything, Mom. Goodbye." She would soon realize what she had lost for such a small amount. But by then, Stephanie and her child had enough time to escape. 1 year later, Christmas used to be the time we waited for our son to come home. Not this year, because we have our wonderful daughter Stephanie and granddaughter Ashley here with us. Thanks for watching Ashley, mother-in-law. She slept like an angel. Did you get what you needed? Yes. Oh, I got some donuts too. How thoughtful of you. Come, sit by the fireplace. Sure. Stephanie settles in next to the fireplace as if she's always been part of our home. You see, Stephanie and her family are living with us. When Daniel, my son, couldn't leave his job abroad, we decided Stephanie and Ashley could stay with us to be safe. Daniel had always planned on transferring back here, and just before Ashley was born, that wish came true. They could have moved out when Daniel arrived, but Stephanie wanted to live with us, so they still do. We thought there might be friction living together, but so far it's been delightful. In fact, it's brought so much life to our remaining years that had otherwise seemed set for monotony. While enjoying some delicious donuts, my husband popped in.
Elizabeth, another email came through.
Oh my, what does it say this time?
Please give Stephanie and my grandchild back. Stephanie is my precious daughter. Since she left, it's like the fire in my heart has gone out. I have no money. If you won't return my daughter, give me money. You'll be in trouble too if something happens to me.
My husband sighed in disbelief.
She writes the same pitiful stuff every time.
Oh, come on, Christopher. As I chuckled at his comment, Stephanie furrowed her brows and laughed awkwardly. Turns out Stephanie's mom squandered the $50,000 she got in exchange for her daughter in no time. And so we get these tragic soliloquies about her pitiful state. Hey, it's like we just changed who we're supporting. We wanted another child but couldn't have one. We got a lovely daughter for just $50,000. It's a bargain. You're too kind, mother-in-law. Stephanie replied with a face on the brink of tears.
Don't worry about the money. Elizabeth and I really feel this way.
Christopher, you're cool. As I teased him, he lightly hit me with the newspaper he was holding. I'm glad I married Daniel. I'm happy I met you and father-in-law. How fortunate. I'm happy too. Getting such a wonderful daughter is the best thing our son has ever done.
Hey, am I being neglected here? You know I'm here too, right?
Daniel pouted, and the grandchild in Stephanie's arms yawned a little. We both chuckled at the sight. Even my husband, tipping his coffee cup, seemed delighted. Another peaceful day passes with our wonderful daughter. Something truly invaluable that money can't buy. That mother who ruins such tender moments is foolish. Instead of meaningless money, she should have valued the warm hand beside her. I sympathize with her for not knowing what it means to be happy as a mother, but I can't forgive her. However, I'm grateful she gave me a wonderful daughter like Stephanie. Shall we have mac and cheese for dinner tonight? I'll help you, mother-in-law. Thank you, Stephanie, as always. That's how it became completely normal for us to stand side by side in the kitchen, savoring our small happiness.
She's pregnant. Divorce me. My world goes dark at my husband's outrageous words. He hands me divorce papers and a meager settlement, then coldly kicks me out. I have nowhere to go, barely holding back tears. But then, right after, a life-changing phone call comes in. My name is Evelyn. I'm 30 years old. I've been married to Samuel for 2 years. By all accounts, I should be living the newlywed dream. But my current reality is far from happy. It all started when Samuel brought up the idea of living with his parents before we got married. Hey, Evelyn, how about we live with my parents? We've never talked about that before. Look, I travel a lot for work. I worry about leaving you alone. Samuel, you're overreacting. I'm an adult, you know. I don't want anything to happen to you. My mom's at home, and since you're working too, she could help out around the house. It could be easier for you. Well, maybe, but despite my reservations, Samuel kept repeating that he was worried about Evelyn. Foolishly, I took his words to heart, thinking he really cared for me. As a result, I reluctantly agreed to move in with his parents. The day after we officially tied the knot, all the moving was done, and once things settled down, I took a moment to give my mother-in-law a proper greeting. Mother-in-law, thank you for having me from today. I look forward to being part of the family. Mother-in-law glares at me and sighs, Yeah. Would you like some coffee? No need. Instead, why don't you go unpack? It's annoying to have all those boxes lying around. Oh, you're right. Sorry about that. I'll get right on it. Ugh, do I have to tell you to do everything? What kind of upbringing did you have? From day one of moving in, I received harsh words from my mother-in-law. Not wanting to upset her, I quickly began to unpack. Anxiety swirled in my head. She seemed really mad. We're going to be living together, so I really want to get along if possible. But despite how I feel, my mother-in-law's snide remarks just keep escalating. Before heading to work, I prepare breakfast and set the table. Since my husband and father-in-law leave the house early, I inevitably end up eating with mother-in-law. She takes a bite of the pancake and shouts, "What is this? Evelyn, what on earth is wrong with these pancakes?" Didn't they suit your taste? Suit my taste? They're horrendous. You expect me to eat this? I did taste test multiple times, and it seemed fine to me. That just means your taste is off. Remake them, now. Her unreasonable demands often made me nearly late for work. Living with her was pushing me to my limits. One day, as I was checking my phone between chores, mother-in-law began berating me in front of my husband. "Evelyn, what are you doing?" Mother-in-law, I just finished hanging laundry, so I was taking a break." "A break, you say? Who do you think you are?" "I'm sorry, but I finished all the household chores." "Don't talk back. Wives don't have the luxury of breaks. Find something to do and keep working. Got it?" But... "No buts. If you get it, go clean the staircase, you failure of a wife." "Failure of a wife? I was just taking a short break. Why does she have to go this far?" That was the moment it clicked with me, and I decided to talk to my husband that night. "Samuel, you saw mother-in-law scolding me today, right?" "Huh? Was something going on?" "You were in the living room. She called me a failure of a wife just because I took a little break." My husband sighed deeply and opened his mouth. "Look, if my mom said that, you must have really messed up. It means you're falling short, Evelyn." What are you saying, Samuel?" "I'm also disappointed in you." "What?" "I thought you'd be a better wife, but as my mom said, you lack awareness. Be more responsible." "What? Lack awareness as a wife? What does that even mean? I'm doing all the housework, even though the premise of moving in was that mother-in-law would help out. I also have a job. Why do I have to endure this much?" From that day on, my husband turned a blind eye. No matter how much mother-in-law bad-mouthed me or even threw things at me, he ignored it. He was already often away on business trips and started spending even less time at home. Thoughts of divorce popped into my head daily, but I had a reason to hang on. It was because of my father-in-law. He was the only one who stood by me. Mother-in-law usually didn't harass me in front of father-in-law, but sometimes our paths did cross. "Evelyn, is the front entrance clean yet?" Yes, right away." "After that, you have to weed the garden. I told you just yesterday." "I'm sorry. It started raining yesterday." "You're just slow. That's the issue. Useless. You neglect housework because you're always working." I'm sorry." Just as I apologized, my father-in-law's voice rang out. "What's going on here?" "Ah, you. What have you been saying to Evelyn?" "Well, she's slow, so, You're having her do all this for you, and then you talk to her like that?" "But she really is slow. The garden is still full of weeds, and even the food doesn't taste good, and there's not enough of it." "Weren't you the one who never touched the garden before we all moved in? And don't you always bring home ready-made meals? If you're going to complain, at least be able to do it yourself." Fine. Whatever." Whenever my father-in-law confronts her with these truths, my mother-in-law retreats to her room. Each time he apologizes to me sincerely. "Evelyn, I'm really sorry about my wife's behavior." "No, it's okay. Thank you, father-in-law. If anything else happens, let me know. Don't hesitate." "Yes, thank you." My father-in-law, who has a strong sense of justice, always stands up for me and scolds mother-in-law. Whenever he's not around, the harassment from her continues. But I've been able to manage, thanks to him. I lost my parents at a young age, so I have no one to turn to, even if I get divorced now. For someone like me, the presence of my father-in-law has been monumental. Then, one day, while at work, I got a call from my mother-in-law. This is odd. Why is she calling me at work? Picking up the phone, I was shocked to hear the news. Your father-in-law has collapsed. Come to the hospital immediately. What? Father-in-law? How? The details don't matter. Your husband Samuel is on a business trip, so you have to come. Yes, understood. I'm on my way. Since my husband had left on a week-long business trip 2 days ago, I had no choice but to go. I explained the situation to my boss and rushed to the hospital. As soon as I arrived, we heard the doctor's explanation. The situation is unclear. He might not regain consciousness. He was fine this morning. We've done what we can. It's up to him now. What? A tense silence followed. Breaking that silence was my mother-in-law. Doctor, are you saying my husband is at risk? That it's just a matter of time before he passes? Whoa, hold on, mother-in-law. What are you talking about? Well, there's a lot to consider, like funeral arrangements and inheritance. We need to plan ahead, don't we? But why bring it up now? Father-in-law is fighting for his life. The doctor's already said there's not much hope. I wonder how much inheritance he's leaving. Mother-in-law! Even after we got home, all my mother-in-law talked about was the inheritance. She'd look at me with this smug grin and say, "You won't be getting a dime." Despite visiting the hospital daily, father-in-law's condition showed no signs of improving. My mother-in-law wouldn't even visit him, and my husband was MIA. All I could do was pray for father-in-law to wake up. A few days later, while getting ready to visit father-in-law in the morning, my husband, who had been on a business trip, finally returned home. Samuel, why didn't you reply to my emails? I stopped mid-sentence because there was a strange woman standing behind him. I had a bad feeling and hesitantly asked, Samuel, who's this woman? I'm sorry, Evelyn. I fell in love with her. I can't be with you anymore. What? I felt as if I'd been hit over the head. Unapologetically, my husband continued. She's pregnant. I want a divorce. What are you saying? Weren't you on a business trip? I was on a trip with her. That's when we found out she's pregnant. You've got to be kidding. Not only was my husband's business trip a complete lie, but he had also gotten another woman pregnant. I felt faint. My vision started to blur. Just then, my mother-in-law rushed over, her eyes shining. Wait, are you really pregnant? What's the baby's gender? We're not sure yet, but it might be a boy. Oh my goodness, a male heir! I'm so happy. Seeing my mother-in-law's excitement, the other woman also chimed in. Thank you, Mom. Oh, calling me Mom. How cute. It was clear why mother-in-law was so ecstatic. She had never approved of me prioritizing my career over having kids. That's why she was welcoming this woman who was carrying what could be her grandchild, even if it was the result of an affair. The two of them continued to celebrate, ignoring my very existence. Then my husband handed me divorce papers. Here, fill this out now. What? I'll give you $1,000 as a settlement for now. After my dad passes, I'll pay you properly from his estate during the divorce proceedings. Now, please leave. You're a burden, and I have no use for a failure of a wife like you. I was more or less forced to sign the divorce papers. Then I was handed a measly $1,000 and kicked out of the house. A surge of fury overwhelmed me in that instant. I've had enough. I don't care anymore. If this means I'm free from my husband and mother-in-law, then that's what I truly want. But where would I go now? My parents are gone, and I can't impose on a friend's hospitality for too long. Just as I was standing there stunned, my mobile phone rang. The caller ID showed the number of the hospital where my father-in-law was admitted. Did something happen to father-in-law? I quickly answered the call. Hello? What? Father-in-law? It was joyous news that father-in-law had regained consciousness. I rushed to the hospital. Upon entering his room, father-in-law looked at me and gave me a warm smile. Hey, Evelyn, you got here fast. Father-in-law! Yeah, sorry to have worried you. I'm just so relieved. What would I have done if you hadn't woken up? I appreciate you caring so much. How's everything at home while I was here? Well, Thing is, I told father-in-law about everything that had happened back at the house, including the fact that I had just been divorced. I poured out my deepest gratitude to him. Thank you for always treating me like your own daughter. You've given me so much to be thankful for. Father-in-law quietly laid his hand on my teary shoulder. Evelyn, this might not be appropriate to ask, but would you consider making me your real father? What? I heard from the hospital staff that you were the only one who came to visit, so when I woke up, I asked them to call only you. Is that so? Seeing their true colors this time made me realize that blood doesn't matter. From now on, I intend to focus only on you. Father-in-law. And so I decided to become father-in-law's adoptive child. After that, I started the discharge procedures for father-in-law. Once he was discharged, we both went to ring the doorbell at my in-law's house. When my mother-in-law opened the door, she was shocked to see both father-in-law and me. Father? And why are you here too? At the sound of mother-in-law's voice, my ex-husband appeared from the back of the house. His reaction was even more shocked than my mother-in-law's. Evelyn, what are you doing here with Dad? Hey, Samuel. You said you'd pay me alimony from your dad's inheritance once he passed, right? Well... So your dad is clearly in good health. How are you planning to pay that alimony? Look, I can't right now. Once my dad eventually passes and I get the inheritance, I will pay you, okay? Can we drop it? As he pleaded, breaking into a sweat, I dropped the bomb. Sorry to break it to you, but you're not inheriting anything. What? My ex-husband's face turned pale, his mouth twitching. That's when my father-in-law delivered the final blow. From now on, Evelyn is my only family. I'm giving all my property to her while I'm still alive. This house will be in Evelyn's name, so the two of you need to leave. Now. You can't be serious, Dad. Do you think I'd joke about this? I'm utterly done with you. All you care about is my inheritance. Get out, now! You're both worthless. Father-in-law then forces my ex-husband and his affair partner out of the house and promptly shoves divorce papers in front of mother-in-law. Just like my ex-husband tried to do to me, he somewhat aggressively pushes for her signature. Sign your name here. No way! He was resolute. You forced Evelyn to sign divorce papers, didn't you? Now sign! She let out a tiny shriek, then reluctantly signed the papers. They apparently moved into a one-room apartment with his affair partner. With all their belongings shipped to them COD, their new place must be a mess. As for me, thanks to my father-in-law, I was able to claim alimony in the divorce. We also completed the adoption paperwork, and now we're enjoying peaceful days as if we're a real father and daughter. Dad, it's nice out. How about we grab a basket and head to the park? A splendid idea, Evelyn. Speaking of which, the sandwich filling is tuna salad and roast beef, right? You never eat anything else. Ha ha ha, you got me. Even after decades, she never remembered. Don't look so glum. I'll always be here to support you, Dad. Now my life is the epitome of happiness. I never imagined such days would await me back then. There's only one thing on my mind now. I want my beloved father to stay healthy and live a long life. That's my one and only wish.